Hello and welcome to Art Block, the show where we talk about art and how it's made. I'm your host Spirit, and today we'll be unboxing and taking a look at the Huion Kamvas GT-156 HD. Now as a disclaimer, this episode was not sponsored by Huion. I actually purchased the tablet on my own, so I'll be providing my own opinions based on my experience with the product. The first thing I need to point out is that the Huion GT-156 is far less expensive compared to its leading competitor, the Wacom Cintiq 16 Pro. Granted, the GT-156 is more expensive than your usual screenless tablet, but for $80 more than the Intuos Pro Medium, I'll gladly take the screen. The GT-156 is about $480 compared to the price of the 16 Pro, which is a whopping $1,500. For someone on a student's salary, that most likely isn't going to work. Upon initially opening the box, I was surprised at how big the tablet actually was. Comparing it to my Intuos Pro Medium, I have almost 16 square inches of extra working space on the Huion GT-156. One thing I really liked was that Huion included everything you need to operate the tablet, including cables, an artist glove, a screen cleaner, and a stand, which is kind of necessary for this type of tablet. I actually had some trouble figuring out where to put all of the stuff on my desk, since there was a lot of stuff included in the box. Some notable things that I found in the box were the pen storage case, the extra pen, and the power adapters. Now personally I live in the United States, which when it comes to Wacom brand tablets you'll be completely fine. However, from what I understand, if you live anywhere that doesn't use the Type A plug, then you'll usually have to buy an adapter. With the GT-156, however, that problem goes away. The power adapter for the GT-156 comes with interchangeable power adapters, which covers you if you don't use the Type A plugs or if you're traveling out of the States. When it came to setting up, the first problem that I had was with the stand that the tablet sits on. Initially, I thought that the stand worked similarly to a tent-style stand. However, upon further inspection, it's actually a locking stand similar to how lawn chairs adjust their height. The stand does have a few levels of adjustability, though the most vertical it goes is about 45 degrees. There aren't any notches on the back of the tablet, instead the tablet simply rests on the stand. If you're planning on installing a swinging arm stand, you may have to get a mount that holds on to the edges of the tablet, or alternatively, you might be able to find some other alternatives that might allow you to adjust the tablet more. The tablet comes with one major cable that splits into three smaller cables. You plug in the single plug into the tablet and the other two cables will plug into the computer, with the last one connecting to your power cable. The one thing that I will point out with this cable is that it comes with an HDMI cable. This is perfectly fine if you're working on PC, however if you're like me and you use a Macintosh, you'll need to get an adapter. Something you'll need to be aware of when setting up a screen tablet is that it is registered as a separate monitor from your main monitor. If you don't set your tablet to monitor 2 in the tablet settings, then your tablet will end up drawing on the main monitor instead of the tablet monitor itself. Something I need to point out is that you'll need to uninstall any other tablet drivers from your computer before you can start working. If this is the first time you've ever used a tablet on your computer, then you'll be fine. However, if you're transferring from one tablet to another like myself, you'll need to uninstall the old one before you can move over to the new one. This process is different depending on what kind of computer you're on and the tablet you're using. For PCs, you can usually go to the installation menu, but for Macs you'll most likely have to do it from the program itself or your application support. Even though the tablet comes with an installation disk, I would highly recommend downloading and installing the driver from the Huion website. The tablet itself not only feels very sleek but very professional. It's a bit heavier than my other tablets, but the weight is actually nice because it doesn't feel ultra delicate. Now, I'm not going to go throwing it around haphazardly, but it's just the right amount of weight that I'm not afraid of resting my hand on it. One thing to note particularly with the screen is that it is a matte screen, which means that it's not super shiny like a cell phone. Matte screens are good because you don't need to worry about having any glare on the screen. I have noticed that my glossy Mac screen is a little bit more vibrant when the color is, however you can adjust the settings on the tablet. The screen is also very smooth and easy to draw on. It doesn't have quite as much texture as my Intuos Pro, however it is a lot more durable than the usual glass screen. Something I didn't really mention before is the proper size of the tablet. The tablet itself is the largest out of the tablets I've owned, and my Intuos Pro barely fits into my backpack. While you could take this tablet with you, I personally wouldn't recommend it. You'd have to carry at least 2 cables, the pen, the stand, and the tablet, and even then you'd need a laptop or other computer to run it. The tablet also features hotkeys on the side as well as a scroll bar. These can't be customized to your needs, however I would recommend keeping them close to the factory settings since I've heard that changing the settings can end up messing up how the tablet performs in vector and animation-based programs. Drawing on the screen, especially for someone who's used screenless tablets for most of her artistic career, can be a little bit of a learning curve. Especially for people with bigger hands, it'll seem like your screen is being invaded. Now, granted, this is closer to the traditional art experience. A big reason why a lot of people like screen tablets is because you can draw right on the screen. Though if you're switching from a screenless tablet to an LCD tablet, then you might have some discomfort. My recommendation is if you're having trouble drawing a line accurately to zoom in slightly so you've got more working space by comparison. My biggest point of contention with the Huion brand is their pens. For the last 4 years of working with tablets, I've always had the luxury of having an eraser on the back of my pen. Instead of an eraser, the Huion pen has a little hole in the back of the pen that is used for charging the pen. While I don't have much of a problem with charging the pen, losing the ability to have an eraser on the back of the pen is something that's difficult for me. Now, the pen does have buttons on the side which can be used as an alternative to the eraser, it's just something you'll have to check your settings for. Compared to my Intuos Pro, the GT-156 has over 8,000 levels of pen sensitivity versus the usual 2,560. The higher level of pressure sensitivity is subtle, but it does allow for more control when it comes to using the tablet and your overall accuracy with certain pen strokes. Personally, I would recommend to adjust your pressure sensitivity curve until you reach a point where you're satisfied. These can be found in the pen settings in the driver. Two things to note about the pen: I wasn't really sure how I felt in general about the shape and the feel of the pen. Maybe I'm just used to the slightly bulkier feeling of the Intuos Pro pen, however I felt that the pen was slightly uncomfortable when I was working with it. I should also mention that the pen doesn't have rubber grips like the Wacom brand, so if you're switching over, that's just something you have to be aware of. Lastly, with the pen, I did notice that there weren't really any tilt functions like you might see in a Wacom brand tablet. Personally, this doesn't affect me that much, however for those of you who use the tilt features on the pen, that's just something you need to be aware of. When it comes to the actual build and distribution of the hardware, there are only a few things I would point out to Huion as suggestions for future products. One would be to feature some form of eraser and rubber grip on the pen. Two would be to consider sending Mac users an adapter for the HDMI cable. Number 3, include some form of a stand for the pen to sit on while it's charging. Next up, we'll be discussing how the tablet interacts with some of the programs you might be using with the tablet. Personally, most of my work is done in Fire Alpaca and Photoshop, however I did try out Flash, Illustrator, and MS Paint in order to get a general spectrum of what you might be working with. For those working with free programs such as Fire Alpaca, the tablet generally works well with its tracking and timing. In Fire Alpaca, I noticed that there were difficulties with making tiny strokes. Initially I was worried that it was something wrong with the tablet, but after a while I realized that it was something wrong with the program. The tablet did work on the Mac version of the program, which makes me wonder if I need to fix some settings on my PC. One thing to note when you're working with Fire Alpaca is that in order to get your pressure sensitivity to register, you need to go to your press keys menu in your tablet settings and click on Linear Optimizer. Otherwise, you'll simply have uniform lines. With Microsoft Paint, there isn't much to be said other than the tablet works really well given the limitations of the program. If I can make one recommendation, it would be to operate either with a canvas that's big enough to cover the entire screen, or zoom it in because it'll be really hard for you to work on just one side of the tablet. Also, this is just something that I've noticed, but older programs such as MS Paint tend to be a bit more pixelated in look when it comes to the screen's resolution. In professional programs like Photoshop and Illustrator, the tablet worked very well with line control, though I did have to adjust my pen settings a little bit to make blending easier in Photoshop. The amount of precision when working in Photoshop is utterly astounding compared to my older tablets. After adjusting the pen settings, I found that some of the custom brushes actually worked better with the increased pen sensitivity. With Flash, it was a bit of an adjustment using some of the tools with my hand now on the screen. Since the pen has increased sensitivities and relative accuracy, I found that working with the pencil tool can end up causing some more unwanted vector nodes than usual, though you can easily avoid this if you work in more controlled strokes. Overall, I would consider this tablet to be one of the better alternatives if you're looking to buy a screen tablet without footing the bill for a Cintiq. With the exception of the Gaomon PD1560, I would consider this to be one of the more affordable screen tablets on the market. For what it offers, the tablet far outclasses my previous tablet, the Intuos Pro, primarily with its pressure sensitivity and general organization. The way that Huion provides essentially everything you need right off the bat is also incredibly important, especially considering how they combine all the cables into one cord for the screen itself. As I've said before, the pen is somewhat a point of contention. While it's nothing major, I believe that if Huion really wants to outclass Wacom in every field, they should consider not only adjusting the pen to be more comfortable, but also provide more pen variations similar to how Wacom does with their Artist Pen series. Despite my problems with the way that the pen handles, Huion is kind enough to include a second pen with the tablet, so if you're okay with the different pen types, then this is the tablet for you. If I were to give the tablet a rating, I would say at least an 8 out of 10, if not a 9 out of 10. If you're new to screen tablets and you're not quite ready to buy a Cintiq, then the Huion GT-156 is a great alternative. And that's about it for today's episode. If you liked what you saw and you want to see more, make sure to subscribe and share this video around. It supports me and is practically free. Also be sure to check me out on Twitter and DeviantArt, where I post artwork and hang out with you guys outside of the show. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Spirit, and I'll see you next time.